Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm going to share with you a hopefully quick little tutorial. Now there's lots of variant ways to do what I'm going to be showing today, but I've had some questions just to kind of show what I'm doing. So what am I talking about? So on my Instagram stories, and I do have a blog post for this page, no process video, but there's a blog post. I'll link it down below for you guys. I had mentioned this little grungy metal piece here. So a sweet internet friend of mine had asked if I had these two embossing folders from Tim Holtz, and I actually did not have these, and they are perfect to go along with the Contending for the Faith devotional kit. So I was super thankful that she sent these, and they have been super fun to play with. So this gear one here is Mechanics. I will have these linked down below. And then this one here is Foundry, and that's the one that I used here. And so these are 3D embossing folders. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how to use these. I've kind of used them in a variety of videos. I will say that I have a Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and they no longer sell the plate that you need to do a 3D embossing folder. And so I just kind of make my own Frankenstein sandwich. I use the base plate. I'll put the 3D embossing folder with the cardstock in it, and then I use the floppy brown embossing mat over the top of it, and then run this through my machine. I'll have my machine linked down below. You do have to be really careful because my machine does have a tendency to want to like suck up this mat, so you just have to go nice and slow and easy, and just kind of take your time. I have yet to break it even when it sucks it up, but you just, go slow. So that is the sandwich that I do. And then as far as 3D embossing folders, you can use really anything in these, but they do create 3D textures. So what I have here is some metallic cardstock that I ran through those two folders, and this is a craft stock from Tim Holtz. He has a variety of metallic cardstocks. I think that he did some videos where he used some like metallic tape that he used with these as well. I think it's like metallic alcohol ink tape or something. I'll try to link it down below, but this is what I use. It's a craft core with metallic on the top. There is gold and silver. I do believe he's re-released these in like a 6x9 paper pad in a variety of different colors and finishes, so I'll link all those down below as well. This is just what I had in my stash. And so when you are running cardstock or paper through these folders, because they are 3D, they have all kinds of texture, you want to make sure that you mist the paper. I just spritz, not so much on the front because it's metallic, it's going to resist, but I just mist 1 or 2 sprays on the back side before running it through the folder, and that's going to help reduce any cracking that you might have. You'll see I had a little bit of buckling, not cracking, but a little bit there. By misting it, it helps kind of soften the paper fibers so they're not as likely to tear or that kind of thing. You also want to make sure that you run this folder through your embossing machine or die cutting machine 3 times. So 3 passes, that's going to give you the best outcome. If you're using thinner papers, you may not have as good results. They're not going to be as likely to take on all the 3D, but if you're using thinner paper, you may need to put a shim, like another piece of cardstock or something like that, to kind of get the pressure where it needs to be. But like I said, this video isn't going to be so much about using the folders as it is going to be doing the grungy metallic look that you see here. And so like I said, you can do this with a variety of colors and mediums. I have to apologize, there is going to be some reflection because I'm going to work on this mat with some alcohol inks today, and I have some noise in the background. They're doing some road work, but I wanted to get this up for you guys. So I've gone ahead and run those 2 pieces through the embossing folders, and then we're going to grunge them up. So I like to use a combination of alcohol inks and distress paints, and then I go back in with distress crayon. So I will have all these linked down below. To get the color that I'm doing, I use espresso, mushroom, and the mineral. Mineral is an alcohol pearl, so you can see it actually has like sediment in it, so you do want to shake it up before you use it. Again, you could do any color combination. Just look at metals, rusty metals. I'm sure you can Google rusty metals and you will see a variety of different colors. I really like when using the salvaged patina paint with some more orangey tones, but I was trying to go for something that better matched the Contending for the Faith kit, so I didn't want to go too vibrant. So alcohol inks, and then I also like to use distress paints. I find that these work better than a regular acrylic paints because these are meant to react with water. They're a lot thinner, so they're easier to control. You can try it with regular acrylic paints, but these are kind of my go-to. So for today, I'm going to be using Vintage Photo, Ground Espresso, Rusty Hinge, and then I'm using Speckled Egg instead of that Salvaged Patina. You can see the color difference there. This one's much more vibrant. This is a little bit more muted. This one does get kind of lost in there, but it adds just another something something. And then I will be using a Walnut Stain Distress crayon in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this one since I already have a piece that I did with Foundry. So I've already gone ahead and run that cardstock through the embossing folder. It's all dry and good to go. And I'm working on a glass mat for alcohol inks. These will stain your surface, so you want to work on glass is preferable. This is the media mat. It does have a non-stick mat over here. I don't want alcohol ink on here because it will stain this mat. So alcohol ink goes over here, and then you can do paints and other inks over here, just not alcohol inks. So we're going to start with laying down the alcohol. And really, there is no like rhyme or reason, right way, wrong way. You just need to get in there and play. You may want to wear gloves if you don't want mess on your hand. I don't mind so much. I'm going to be really careful. So I'm just going around in a few different places. And then I just take a makeup sponge. You can use a blending tool with some felt on the end. I just didn't have that, so I'm using this makeup sponge to just kind of pounce the color around. Alcohol ink dries in just a few seconds, so you do want to move pretty quickly with it. And you'll see that this is going to pretty much cover all the silver, but we will bring back the silver towards the end. And you don't want to leave your alcohol inks open for too long. I leave them open just while I'm kind of working on the panel real quick, and then I'll cap them. Okay, and it does not have to be perfect. Kind of the idea behind this is to be splotchy, grungy. This is the one that had the pearls, so it has a little bit of shimmer in it. And again, you could do this with colored metallic as your base. That would just give you a different look. The gold would give you a different look. You can see this is definitely getting more of a gold tint to it, just with the colors that I chose, but you'll see the silver kind of come back here in a second. So I'm wanting that to get down into the nooks and crannies because I will come back and rub off the top. So I just want the silver to be on the top. So, and again, it dries pretty quick, so I'm wanting to move pretty quick. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and cap these two. I'm gonna leave my mushroom ink because I will go back in and add a little bit more mushroom towards the end just because that's a color that I really like. Okay, so now we're gonna go in with our paint. So that's gonna be my base layer. And then I have another separate sponge for my paints. And these I'm gonna put out onto my mat over here. And then I'll pick it up and sponge it on. I'm trying to move quick so this isn't like a hour-long video. And it doesn't take much. This one I'm just going to use because it has a sponge dabber. Now I actually prefer the sponge dabbers. The Ranger paints don't automatically come with the sponge dabbers anymore. You have to buy those separate. They actually come with the flip tops. I actually prefer the dabbers for the different things that I do with them. So it is what it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to lightly mist that first. These paints, once they dry, are permanent. So you kind of have to move quick since we're not using a lot of paint because I don't want it to dry before I can get it moving. So I will periodically spray it down with water just to keep things mixing and blending. It's not, you don't have to worry too much about harsh lines because they will kind of blend in as we continue this process, but I do try to avoid it as much as I can. And you can see this is kind of looking like Hot Mess Express, but just trust me, it'll come together here. Okay, so there is that. And then last I'll come in with some speckled egg, just get it started. And then I'm just gonna dot this around in a few different places. This is going to get onto the top and I'll just wipe it off on a baby wipe and it will be totally fine. Okay, so And spray that just a little bit, kind of blend things. And then I'm gonna go back in with mushroom alcohol ink. And this is going to do some really fun blooming and splotching. And the mushroom just has all of these really cool colors in it. I don't know, it's just one of my favorite alcohol inks. And you'll see now you're getting those like metallic blooms on there. That is what I wanted. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure this is good and dry, clean up my space, and then we'll go on to the next step. But you can see, I mean, that just looks like a muddled mess. You've kind of lost the detail, the texture. Don't worry, we're gonna bring it back. So let me go dry this, clean up my mess, and I'll come back and show you the next few steps. Okay, so we're all good and dry. One thing you want to be careful of is that you don't have big giant puddles of the alcohol ink, because even when it's dry, it'll be a little bit tacky. So it's better to have a thin layer of the alcohol inks. You may want to, you know, let it sit overnight to fully cure if you're having a hard time getting it to dry. But I just like heat it up like crazy with my heat tool. You will see that I must have had some cracking right in here, and so it did leak on the back, but that's okay. This will, you know, be down this way, so it doesn't matter what's on the back. But there is where we're at right now. Lots of texture. Now you could stop right there, but we're gonna do a couple more steps. So I'm gonna buff away some of the top layer to reveal some of the silver. So I have my splat box piece of paper down there, and then I learned this from Tim Holtz. Like him, I cannot stand the like touching steel wool, microfiber cloths, any of those. I hate it. And so he had shared this where you just kind of wad up some steel wool on one of those blender tools, and it just sticks right on there. So I have this stays just like this, so I don't ever have to touch it again. I keep it just like this. And then putting it in the splat box catches all of the little metal debris. So I'm just gonna lightly buff over this piece with the steel wool. It's easier to go light and, you know, build up the intensity of what you're trying to reveal than to go in there super, super hard at first and then reveal too much. So I'm just kind of going in circular motions, and this is just going to catch the topmost parts of the design and bring back some of the silver. You can see some of the silver coming back in now. So you're just going to take this down to however far you want. Keep in mind that that silver is on top of the craft cardstock. So if you go in too aggressively, you can reveal, you know, go past the silver and bring out the cardstock. You could also do this with a sanding block if you wanted to. The steel wool just is a little bit easier to control than a sanding block. So let me go ahead and just buff this to where I want it. Okay, so now you can see there is some silver revealed, and now we can kind of see the shape of those gears a little bit easier. So now comes the final step of the process. I want to further define the depressions from the raised areas. So that's where the distressed crayon comes in. You could try doing this with gelatos. I just prefer working with the distressed crayons than gelatos, but you do you. I like these better. So I also have here one of the distress blending brushes. Depending on where you hold this, you can have a nice tight bristle or a loose fluffy bristle. I just have a few of them for different color families. So like this is all the browns get used with this one here. Distress crayons do dry down. So I like to work in sections. So kind of smooth this all over. And I'm gonna take my brush and kind of rub that crayon into the nooks and crannies. And unlike gelatos, these crayons are not permanent. So I can come back in and clean it with a baby wipe, which is what we'll do. So right now I'm just going in, rubbing all of that brown into the nooks and crannies. It's gonna look like Hot Mess Express until we come back in with the final step here. Okay, so now that we have that covered in brown crayon, You can see we've lost the silver and shine, but now I'm going to take a baby wipe and just kind of pounce it over the piece. And because distressed crayons are reactive with water, I can pull away the crayon from the top areas. So I'm not pushing super hard because I want the crayon to stay in the little nooks and crannies. I'm just wanting to reveal the top, part of the design. And now you can see how all of the inking and painting that we did just all blends together. You can't really see the harsh lines. If you take away too much, don't worry, you can go back in with your crayon and add more if you want more. But now you can see we have this really amazing grungy metallic, looks like just old cogs and wheels. I mean, it's just so amazing that that comes out of cardstock and an embossing folder. So here's a look at, bright silver, and then here's what it looks like all grungy. And you can see I left this real time other than, where I stepped away to clean up or dry, which was just a few seconds. It does not take very long to do this. I would heat set this after the crayon. That way the crayon is good and dry, but then you can use this piece as a pocket. You can use it as a layering element like I did in my page. You could die cut pieces out of this. You could tear it. You can do all kinds of things with this. And so it just gives you a fun way to maybe use your products, that you have, like your alcohol inks, your paints, in a different way than just applying them to the page. This really gets you a lot of use with your products, and you can test and play and experiment outside of your Bible. No fear. If you mess up, throw it away. I mean, it really is kind of a no fail. You can experiment with different color combinations. You could also experiment with adding, grab it right here, different texture paste. So like grit paste, if you wanted to wipe some grit paste into places before you color it, then you would have like, that, it's not an algae bloom, but that crustiness that gets on metal. You could get that by just skimming some grit paste in different areas, or crackle paste, all those texture pastes. You could really build this up to be really textured and fun. So there's a look at one of the ways that I kind of use these embossing folders and get that, grungy metallic look. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below for me. Check out the description box for links to everything that I used today. Give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful and you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.